And we are live on the True Mets Talk postgame show following another W against the Washington Nationals. The Mets win game 2 of this series. It's been a while since I've done a postgame show on my channel. So everybody in the comments section, welcome back. Hopefully there's no technical difficulties. If you have trouble hearing me at any point in stream, let me know, Nick, and let me know in the chat, and we'll go about it in terms of mitigating it that way. But Nick, it's been a while. How are you doing today?
What's going on, brother? You coming in loud and clear, and it's good to be back on, and it's good to be back above 500.
Bottom line, you're absolutely right. When the Mets are teetering back and forth between under and over and at 500, it's good to get over the hump. The New York Mets are officially 46 and 45 after tonight's win, and you all know the deal. If you are here, make sure you subscribe to my channel and make sure you're subscribing to Nick's YouTube channel, the He Did This To Me podcast on YouTube. Links in the description down below. Make sure you go ahead and tap on that link in the description and make sure you go subscribe and hit that thumbs up on both of our streams. This is also being streamed to Nick's YouTube channel. Drop those live chat comments. How are we feeling? Mets fans, please give me a vibe check. But let's start off by talking about some pitching in tonight's ball game that we saw. Luis Severino desperately needing a bounce back start after his previous start in Pittsburgh. Nick, you see the stat line here. 6 1/3 innings pitched, 4 hits, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks. I'd like to lower the walks even more, perhaps maybe even a 0, but he got the job done and he left the bullpen in good hands. What did you make of Luis Severino's start?
I thought both he and his counterpart had certain parts in the game where it seemed like they were about to get lit up, but overall they were able to keep things under control. And Severino specifically, I mean, the guy just seems like he's made for New York, and he can handle all the different things that come along with playing in this city. He's got a backup home plate. Okay, he's got a backup home plate, and the fact that he did that a second time, did the play right afterwards did not back up home plate, and then we saw us not score a run because Corbin did back up home plate in the very next inning was extremely glaring. But overall, I mean, Severino's been a godsend for us this season. I don't think anybody expected him to be as valuable as he has been, and at the end of the day, what it really comes down to with him has always been health. When he's been able to get out there on the mound throughout his career, he's been a better than average pitcher, if not a good pitcher. And, we'll keep our fingers crossed. So far this year, he's been able to get out there every fifth day.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. The health is what we worry about with Luis Severino. I don't worry about his stuff in terms of the arsenal that he possesses. I talked about it in our pregame stream earlier tonight before the game, talking about his command and how he needs to get that under wraps. Seemed like he was doing a lot better with his location, locating pitches very well. Don't worry about his velocity at all. I know tipping pitches was the concern last season with the Yankees. That was sort of what the answer was to his sort of horrible season, right? With over a 5.5 ERA in that season with the Yankees, one of the worst of his career, if not the worst of his career. And it seems like he has mitigated that for the most part this season. But sort of in the last couple of outings, ever since that Cubs start that he had, was teetering back and forth between that consistent line. And he finally gets back on track today. You see here right next to Luis Severino. And by the way, props to Luis Severino. I know a lot of people in the chat as well were not worried about him going into the start, and neither was I, as we said in the pregame. And thank you, D, for answering my question. I'm lagging on my end, but I'm just going to talk as if I'm not lagging. So
You're
appreciate
good
you
here.
all.
You're good.
All
You're
good.
good.
Okay, great. You see right here next to this in this graphic, Danny Young, who just got brought up today, appeared in the ball game to relieve. He did not relieve Luis Severino directly. Instead, he got the setup duty in which he went 2/3 innings pitched. No earned runs, no strikeouts, no walks. He wasn't able to finish the inning. That went to Jose Buto. But We'll talk about the bullpen here in just a second, especially as it pertains to Mr. Jake Diekman and Reed Garrett. But what did you make of the bullpen usage tonight, especially after Luis Severino left the ballgame? Because it seems like when Daniel Nunez pitches like he did last night, when Edwin Diaz pitches like he somehow was forced to enter the game last night, right? In a game where you really don't want Edwin Diaz entering in case you need him for tonight, it seems like Carlos Mendoza has had his work cut out for him in terms of who he's going to utilize in games 2 and maybe even 3, if it's a 4-game set in most of these last couple of series. So, what did you make of that usage tonight? We saw a combination of Diekman, we saw a combination of Danny Young, who just got brought up today as well. And then you got Jose Buto as well. What did you make of the overall, I guess, bullpen usage tonight?
I think tonight was a perfect example of the fact that, it's so easy when you have the results to look at what a manager did in a particular game and say, okay, well, he shouldn't have done this or he shouldn't have done that. And I'm guilty of it myself. There's been times, especially in this last week, that I didn't agree with certain things in the moment. But overall, I mean, he seemed like he pulled all the right strings tonight. Diekman comes in and his first pitch, it was a foot short and 3 feet outside. And I was like, oh shit, here we go with this guy. And that's his issue. I know you were actually listening to the Washington broadcast, right?
I have to listen to the Washington broadcast. Yep.
Yeah, I've been there before. It's the worst. Honestly, nobody comes close to Gary and Keith and Ron. But yeah, Gary made the point immediately and said, like, the issue with him is whether or not he throws strikes. And even last season, in the first half of the season, he wasn't throwing strikes. He gets traded to Tampa Bay. He starts throwing strikes and he has a great end of the year. And that's why we bring him in. And he's been so up and down this year. And it always comes down to that. So when I see that first pitch miss so badly, I immediately get very nervous. But then he follows that up by getting out of that inning. He comes in, gets out lefties, does what he's supposed to do. I've loved Budo in the pen. Since he's been, since he's been called back up and he has been in the back end and been able to get you a long relief appearance here and there. Tonight he was able to get 4 outs. I've loved what I've seen of him. Him and Nunez to me are the 2 guys out of the pen that I feel like the most confident in currently. Sugar slightly behind that, but I do remember the beginning of the season still, so that still has me nervous. But at the end of the day, I think that what you have to do is look at a manager in his totality and not, micro analyze every single game. I saw people on X talking about the fact that he, comparing him to Terry Collins and saying that Terry Collins was so much better at managing the bullpen because he manages, for the entire season and not just a particular game. Listen, those same people and most of Metsland was crushing Terry Collins for his. I'm sorry, not Terry Collins. I'm Buck Showalter for his use of the bullpen. Sorry, the broadcast was talking about Terry for like an inning and a half today, so he's on my head. But no, yeah, they crushed him for that. They crushed him for that, and at the end of the day, he had a way better bullpen, and I think Mendoza is doing the best with what he's got. And you can't kill the guy every time it doesn't go exactly his way.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. We talked about it on the pregame as well today. It's going to be a lot of plugging and playing. This type of situation that this organization has had to deal with, right? Not only with the big league guys dealing with injuries like the guy we'll talk about in the next slide, Reed Garrett, but also Brooks Raley, also Drew Smith going down. You had Edwin Diaz on an IL stint plus a suspension. You've got minor league guys like Nate Lavender that are now out for the season that are out of the picture in terms of coming up and being those guys. It's really hard to foresee that happening. Although over 162, right, in a season, anything can happen. And let's not forget, we root for the New York Mets, and they have a long injury history that has sort of plagued this organization over the last however many years that I've been a fan of. So it's part of the game. Every team deals with it, but the better organizations that have better setups at the top of the office make moves to mitigate and to get ahead of the curve, just like the Mets did with the latest addition in Phil Maton. So, like I said, I agree with you in terms of the pecking order of who we trust. I do have full confidence in Edwin Diaz. I will say, will cut him some slack for the beginning of the season, but I 100% urge everybody to just tip their caps to Daniel Nunez because this bullpen and this team if Daniel Nunez did not come up here and immediately make an impact like he has done ever since he got brought up, we are probably not talking about the Mets being in a wild card race currently. I will say that time and time again. I think he deserves all the credit in the world, and I cannot wait for the Mets to finally be able to utilize him in a consistent role in the back end of the bullpen, perhaps even as a setup guy for one inning, even though he's allowed and able to get you 2+ innings and he's shown that capability. I really want to see him as a one inning type of guy because I really do think that's going to maximize his performances out of that pen. So, like I said, great pitching performance. Good job by the guys that were called on today. Good job by the guys that were called on yesterday, minus Adam Ottavino, which is a whole sort of different discussion as well in terms of what his role is going to be on this team moving forward. But as always, if you are on this channel, if you're on this stream, hit that thumbs up. If you're in the live chat, make sure to hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, whether you're on X or whether you're on YouTube. If you're on X, come over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Trying to inch my way closer to 900 subscribers, and make sure you get Nick and Nick's father on the He Did This To Me podcast to 300 subscribers over on YouTube. The link's going to be in the description down below. A must subscribe. If you are subscribed to my channel, make sure you go ahead and do that. So I appreciate everybody. I always prop up comments. A lot of comments coming in here in the live chat right now. So appreciate you, Frank. Thank you so much for the support. Jeremy, D, Darren, Thor, Oliver, everybody, even Yeet, and you're trolling, Yeet. I appreciate you too. Thank you so much for being here. And if I missed you, like Carlos Ortiz, I never miss Carlos because he's always here. He's always showing support. I appreciate every single one of you all. I'll keep getting to some comments as we can, but I want to make this a little bit more of a brief post-game show tonight, but we will definitely hit the X's and O's. Good pitching performance nonetheless. Let's talk a little bit more bullpen. Let's talk about the recent news of Reed Garrett with the elbow inflammation. Felt some tightness in his forearm. We talked about it a little bit on the pregame as well. I just kind of want to rehash maybe some of your thoughts as it relates to this injury and how the bullpen is going to sort of shake out moving forward in Reed Garrett's absence. What I will say before you take your turn is that Reed Garrett has been kind of an anchor man for this bullpen, although he has looked like a different version of himself since about mid-May. He's kind of labored and hit a laboring point, but the thing is that or at least we did know, that he was going to be able to come in and provide you perhaps more than one inning if necessary. And it seems like the Mets have a lot of those types of guys. You talk about Reed Garrett before he went down. You talk about a guy like Daniel Nunez. You talk about a guy like Adrian Hauser, now Jose Butto. But this guy, along with Daniel Nunez, when the bullpen was at its lowest point, rock bottom, I think we all forget because we give props are due to Daniel Nunez. Reed Garrett was also the one that was pitching bulk innings and holding it down as well until the rest of the guys came back. So just wanted to get your brief thoughts on this Reed Garrett situation because it's kind of peculiar. I'm not sure if you realize this, but he actually pitched in the first game of the 4-game set in Washington, and then we didn't see him as much as we see Reed Garrett. The next time out after that game on July 1st, we didn't see him until July 6th. I believe that was the second game against Pittsburgh at PNC of this last series. So little bit peculiar there, and I wonder if Reed Garrett and the Mets sort of were testing out that injury, giving him a little bit of extended rest. And I wonder if that's where he started to feel some of that tightness creep in before he decided to go back out there and give it another go. I don't know. Just speculation on my end.
Well, as D aptly pointed out in the chat, Garrett threw 60 plus pitches in his last 2 games. So it really is weird the way that this has played out for him, with him now ending up on the IL. And, it's one of those things where you hope it's only going to be 15 days, but it kind of sounds like it could be longer. And really, when it comes to the Mets and their pitching, it's going to be a lot of moving parts here in these next month or so when it comes to guys being injured, who's going to step up. Senga possibly coming back? Are we going with a six-man rotation? Who knows exactly what's going to happen? Oh, can we add anybody by the deadline? So there's going to be so many different moving parts. It's probably going to look a lot different a month from now than it looks at this moment. And the Mets are just going to have to continue to do what they've done all season, which is just piece it together when they can and, try to protect leads. It's not going to be easy. It's the Achilles heel of this team. It's what we know is going to be the thing that can hold us back. Going into the season, we thought it was going to be the starters, but the starters have stepped up, and now it's been the bullpen. And I wish that I could say that I feel one way or the other, but it's a night by night thing. Hopefully, the offense can do what it's done recently, which is continue to tack runs on late and take that pressure off of the pen, and then we can have just enough. Eh, no lead is safe with this team. You look at last night, and at one point, you feel like you're doing well. If we don't tack on those extra few runs, that's a whole different game, and we come out of it, and we feel totally different right now. Because right now we've won 2 games, we get a chance to sweep tomorrow. Now we go to Colorado, we take 2 out of 3. We go into the break feeling fantastic. Okay, but obviously, if we lose that game last night, everything feels different. So it's going to be a night by night. We're never going to be able to say the bullpen is a strength of this team. If that happens, I mean, that'll be the biggest surprise ever. And we're just going to have to hope that Mendoza can continue to press the right buttons.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. This is a loss, and you certainly don't like hope that it becomes a Drew Smith situation 2.0, where you see a little bit of like arm fatigue, a little bit of forearm tightness turning into like a Tommy John necessity, like we saw with Drew Smith. Hopefully, Reed Garrett can sort of come back, but you always have it in the back of your mind that this could just not only be a 15-day stint on the IL for Reed Garrett. Like there's a potential, and there's always a potential with these types of injuries. And this initial diagnosis with how the team labels it as something more. So we'll see. We'll see, but I don't think, and no disrespect to Reed Garrett, I don't think that this is an injury that's sort of insurmountable for the Mets organization. Like you said, it's next man up, it's plug and play, and we'll go from there. And the Mets already sort of mitigated that, probably not by chance, although maybe they were foreshadowing an IL stint for Reed Garrett anyways when they made the trade and the decision to trade for Phil Maton, who will be used, quote unquote, according to Anthony DiComo, in bulk innings, in high leverage situations and things of that nature. So, also, by the way, fun fact, Phil Maton will be the first Met in history of the Mets organization to wear number 88. Nothing to do with his actual performance, but a cool little nugget right then and there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see how this bullpen continues to shake out. I really hope that we can find a way to bring in pieces, whether it's call-ups from the minor leagues or whether it's via the deadline. Quite simple. The Mets are going to be buyers unless something catastrophic happens to this team in the next couple of weeks. This team will be buyers. And you can guess or assume my initial assumptions is that they're not going to go balls to the wall, so to speak, and go out there and get heavy hitters, either on the pitching side or the hitting side, right? No pun intended. But what they will do is get serviceable contracts, serviceable veterans that David Stearns has a knack for, an eye for, and they will go out there and add so that they can make players like Adam Ottavino and maybe even a Jake Diekman expendable as the season starts to get down to the home stretch of things. So, like I said, stay tuned for maybe a trade deadline podcast coming up on my channel within the next couple of weeks. Want to talk trade deadline, but I do have a vacation scheduled here in the next couple of days, and you know how the content goes when you're out and about on the road. So I do apologize about that, especially with my latest vacation. But yeah, hopefully we see Reed Garrett sooner rather than later. But as always, with Carlos Mendoza, David Stearns, etc., with this organization, it's next man up. But let's talk about this win here from the offensive side of things. 46-45, that feels great. It's been an uphill battle to get to 500. It's been an uphill battle to maintain 500 and get over 500. And now that we are here, now that this team is here, they need to not look back. But the offense, a guy like Jake Irvin last night, who toasted them in DC. Went 8 innings pitched, 8+ strikeouts in that game. They come around and they do the job against him. Patrick Corbin, a guy that they have notoriously hit on the flip side of things, goes out there and cruises through 5 innings before he gets into some trouble. Although Brandon Nimmo sent a rocket off of Patrick Corbin for 400+ feet, but nonetheless, until that 6th inning, Patrick Corbin was cruising. So, what did you make of the at bats and the difference? Because it was kind of like a tale of two halves in this game for me. It seemed like the bats were lethargic to start the game off. And then in the second half of the game, they really started to hone in on their craft. It got started with the JD Martinez single, followed by a Pete Alonso single. And I'm not sure what was going on in the mind of JD Martinez. And thankfully he got there, but he decided to test the arm of Lane Thomas. And he squeaks in there. The throw is offline. Great. But in a different scenario, if he had gotten thrown out there, that could have been a huge momentum change to that ball game. So I'm glad that wasn't the difference. But what did you make of the lineup tonight?
So as you said, Corbin did cruise for, the majority of his start until it all blew up for him in the 6th. But in the first couple innings, we got 3 hits off of him. One of them was the home run by Nimmo. And I almost felt like we were about to start tattooing this guy. And then after that, he righted the ship until we were able to get to him in the 6th. Now, just like you said, there was a part in the middle of this game. I saw that earlier in the chat. D said that it was a murderer's row. And again, this is another example of how you sometimes you can't look at things in the micro, and you got to look at the whole thing, because at the end of the 3rd and the 4th inning, the Mets very unceremoniously didn't score any runs when they had, good situations and they had some of their big boppers up. And it was looking like, damn, this is our chance to get to this guy, and we're not going to get to him. Then in that particular inning, when we do get to him, there's a couple curious plays. You have JD going ahead and deciding to, like you said, it's the worst out ever if he gets thrown out right there. And but sometimes you got to make a guy make a perfect throw. He's been a little bit off at the plate, not even a little bit. He's been slumping recently, which it's weird to see him look so lost at the plate like he has recently. But he gets a hit. He decides to go first to third, and then the very next at bat, Vientos hits the ball, what to me seemed like I could not believe that Pete didn't score right there. I wrote down in my notes right there, if we don't end up getting this go-ahead run, I'm going to be furious, because that ball was clearly a double off the bat. And what are you trying to tag up at second and get to third right there in that scenario? No, you need to be halfway. So if that ball is not caught, you score easily. Now, all's well that ends well, because our guy Iglesias comes up and gets a huge hit. And that was really the biggest hit of the game. McNeil, I'm sorry, Squirrel, go find a nut somewhere else. I don't want to see him anywhere. I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him anymore. Iglesias is the guy. He's got fantastic energy. And if you are a Mets fan from the early 2000s, he reminds me of Jose Valentin when we got him. The journeyman second baseman, had played a bunch of places, super solid in the field, fantastic hands. And when he came to the Mets during that run in 2007, I think it was, even though the Phillies ended up hawking us at the end, and we don't need to talk about that. We know about that. But he was that same guy who he was just in the middle of everything. Now, Iglesias actually, in numbers wise, is way better than a guy like Valentin was, but I just think that he's played so well. His energy is infectious. When he scored and he popped up and, pumped his fist, come on, man. I think it's, I just don't want to see any more Squirrel. I'm over him. And Jeff McNeil, there's a few years ago where he was one of my 2 or 3 favorite players on the team. It's over for him. It's over for him. I'm sorry. Not when this guy is playing this well ahead of him. He's hitting both righties and he's hitting lefties. I don't think that McNeil, even against righties, should be getting any more playing time when it comes to this guy. Real quick, before I kick it back to you, Brandon Nimmo. I mean, this guy looks better at the plate than I have ever seen him before. And you weren't listening to the Mets broadcast, but Steve Gelbs was talking about the fact that Nimmo, about 3 years ago, they looked at the fact that he was hitting balls hard, that he had a great eye, but he was hitting everything on the ground. And they said, okay, him and Jeremy Barnes said, listen, we got to figure out a way to get you to elevate the ball more. And that Nimmo doesn't specifically try to hit the ball the opposite way. And he doesn't try to hit the ball out the opposite way with so much power like he has recently. But in high school, that most of his homers were the opposite way, and he had to learn how to pull the ball. Now, shout to my guy Kyler, who I work with, who actually played Legion ball with Nimmo during high school. He's from Wyoming. They didn't actually have a high school. They had to play Legion ball. And he talks about how just like unreal he was back then in all sports, not even just in baseball. And he's such a big, strong guy that him just being somebody who's always looking to walk was such a waste. And recently, he's learned how to drive the ball. He's in the 2-hole. He's much better there than he was in the 3-hole. Obviously, you and I should be offensive consultants for the New York Mets, because between me saying that JD needs to be in the 3 and he needs to be in the 2 and Pete needs to be in the 4, and your continued touting of Vientos, who's looking like the third baseman for the foreseeable future for the New York Mets, somebody needs to be asking us our opinions when it comes to the Mets brass. But yeah, man, it's just great to see Nimmo blossoming into what he is. It feels like it feels real. Like one of the things that Gelb said is that he doesn't try to he doesn't try to hit it to the right or to the left. He just tries to hit the ball up the middle. And if he's late, it goes to the oppo. If he's ahead, it goes, he pulls it. That's much easier said than done. That's how you would teach a kid how to hit a baseball. But most guys can't do that. Most guys are guessing, and they are looking to hit the ball to a certain field and looking for a ball in a particular zone. The fact that Nimmo is in a place where he is just swinging freely, and wherever he hits it, he hits it. I mean, come on, man. That's fantastic, and we can only hope that continues. And if it does, we really got something special.
Yeah, 100%. I love what you just said there, because especially when I was playing baseball, that up the middle approach and adjusting, right? Whether you're late or early on the pitch and it's just going to go naturally where your bat path takes it, is something that I really do think all major leaguers, right, in one way or another should like or are emulating. But the thing is that they're at such a high level where they're definitely guessing on pitches, because when you have a pitcher that's out there throwing 4 or 5 pitches and has that sort of mix, and you're down 1-2-0-2, of course, any sort of player's tendency is going to be like, okay, I know this slider's coming. Got to get ready for the slider. And then what happens when a 95-mile-per-hour fastball comes right up at your letters? You're going to be late natural, and you have no chance no matter how good you are. So it's really hard, and that's what makes hitting hard. But Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, who I've also been absolutely clamoring for at the leadoff spot, he got the chance and hasn't looked back, has been top 3 player in the NL, in the entire NL, as soon as he moved to that leadoff spot. We know what he provides on defense. He's hitting over 300, right, at the leadoff spot. The OPS is 900 plus at the leadoff spot. Like, all of these guys are starting to click. The one guy, and he's got a couple base knocks tonight, but I really do think that he has more to provide, Pete Alonso, if he starts to become the polar bear that we know, and I'm not saying that he's had a terrible season so far. All I'm saying is that I don't think we've seen the tip of the iceberg, especially in a contract year, and what we could be seeing from Pete. And if this lineup, and we're talking about this lineup in a proper way right now, we're talking about Jose Iglesias coming in, winning a job. We're talking about Mark Vientos proving everybody wrong outside of a select few fans in this fan base. We're talking about Tyrone Taylor, who's coming in and just hitting triples, like everybody's saying in the chat. Harrison Bader, who takes the offer but is having a career year so far at the plate. I really do think, right, Jeff McNeil's a different story. We can talk about him versus DJ Stewart and who you rather prioritize there, because I do think it could come down to either of those two if you're not bringing anybody up. But if Pete Alonso decides to go on a tear tonight, is great. I'm talking about a consistent tear. This lineup could get elevated even more in my mind.
I got a theory on Pete. He needs the Derby, man. Unlike David Wright, who typically, we saw what happens to him post doing the Derby. Pete, on the other hand, has some history of getting on fire after a Derby. So the Derby comes up. Hopefully he gets a new pitcher that's not throwing him slide pieces the entire time. And he can, have a good showing in the Derby, get some confidence going, get that stroke going, pause. And then in the second half, he can, the thing I like about Pete is he hasn't gone just full tank. He hasn't gone just full tank. He gives you an inkling every once in a while that you see him waking up, and at the end of the day, he's got what, 18, 19 homers. He's got some big hits and some big moments. I still have the confidence that Pete is going to really, really, he's gonna get hot at a certain point in the second half, and at the end of the year, you're gonna look up. He's gonna have 35 dingers. He's gonna have close to 100 RBIs, and he's gonna be hitting 260 something. And at the end of the day, since he's been in the majors, that's what he's consistently done. And I know this is a different conversation, but if you're the New York Mets, I don't know how you let that guy get away. You don't want to give him 10, 12 years. I get that, but you can't bring this guy up in your system, have him be the guy who's hit more home runs in the majors since he's been in the major leagues, and be the New York Metropolitans with the richest owner in sports, and let this guy get away.
100%. 100%. Like Yeet's saying in the chat too, hopefully Pete Alonso gets Dave Jouse to go back and pitch for him. Those little lollipops right in there hitting moonshots in Arlington, Texas, instead of, I believe his cousin was the one that was pitching to him last year.
He's
that
throwing
was
him
just throwing
cutters.
sliders.
He's throwing sliders and cutters, dude. It was horrible. I was watching. I was like, yo, how is he supposed to be able to hit these balls out, man? Come on, yo.
Exactly. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, this is a really sound game. Honestly, I was never worried. Even when Corbin was sort of rolling there, all I knew is that obviously the Mets left the bases loaded and they stranded the bases loaded with 2 outs the inning prior, I believe. And they chose not to send Vientos on that base hit, which was fine. Lane Thomas has a great arm. I'm cool with that. You let the next
Vientos
man up have a crack at it. Yeah, I'm
Vientos
cool
is
with
slow.
that.
He would have been gunned if he got
Exactly. So I'm cool with that. And I was like, listen, it seems like they're starting to get to him a little bit. Next inning, these guys will break out. You got JD Martinez coming up, and boom, sure enough, leadoff knock. And then you get Pete Alonso doing what he does best, going opposite field, the right center gap. Coincidentally, when Pete Alonso's at his best, it seems like he's hitting some sort of variation to the opposite field. Go figure. And it just goes and rolls on from there. So the offense never got me worried. They never got me worried. Alvarez, his discipline at the plate should have been 2 for 2. Guy was stealing. I forgot who was on base was stealing. He had a rocket up the middle. Should have been 2 for 2 for the double play in that 8th inning. But who cares? His play discipline is absolutely phenomenal. Drawing 2 walks. You know that he wants to swing the bat with runners in scoring position, especially when you have a runner on first and second with nobody out, or second and third, nobody out, or 1 out. But his plate discipline and his ability to lay off those sliders down and out, not chase it, even though we all know he wants to. Listen, a guy like Francisco Alvarez is up there to hit. He's not up there to walk. But you know what? A walk helps the team rather than a ground out or a rollover to the pitcher where the base runners can't advance. And that's exactly what Francisco Alvarez has been able to master. And by virtue of the trade, the Mets in total, as a total lineup, have been able to hunt their pitches, and they are swinging at consistent strikes. I'm not saying you have to swing at every single strike, especially the ones that are catching the zone or the outer third of the zone that are sliders, etc. But what I'm saying is that look at Brandon Nimmo and what he did today. 1-0 count. Like you said, like your coworker that knows Brandon Nimmo said, he is more than just a hitter that's supposed to be up there hunting for walks. We just saw him hit a missile on 3-0 to tie up the ball game that led in an eventual loss. I understand that, but that happened in Pittsburgh. 1-0 hunting fastball tonight. He hits a rocket off of Patrick Corbin. This is what you want. You want to get yourself in hitters counts, and once those hitters counts develop and present themselves as soon as a strike is thrown, you swing the bat and good things happen. I promise. It's that simple, although it really isn't that simple. I'm just here talking about the team that I love, making it simple for you all and for all of us to try to understand what these major leaguers go through on a day-to-day basis. So listen, this is your game 2 box score. This was our spiel on the lineup. This was an overall great performance, top to bottom, even with Bader getting the offer. Doesn't matter. Everybody picks him up. And then you got Iglesias as well sliding into home, which coincidentally goes through with this graphic right here and that OMG sign that everybody on this team is loving right now, including Brandon Nimmo, when seems like he's hitting home runs on a consistent basis. Every single time he hits a home run, he puts up the OMG sign. So does Lindor. And guess what? Oh man, our New York Mets are inching closer and closer to where we want them to be and where we thought they would be ever since they signed JD Martinez. Because that was really the point for me. That was like, okay, listen, we're in it, we're serious, we're doing it. We're a playoff team. I was never expecting the NL East, but I was expecting a wild card. And I know it's early. I know it's July 10th. I know a lot of people hate updating the wild card standings, and we're here talking about a game by game basis. I hear you, and I'm with you 100%. This win was great, but it's on to tomorrow. I'm with you. But I'd be lying to you if I was telling you as a fan, I'm not sitting there and checking the wild card standings after every game, maybe even 2 or 3 times after each game. Because guess what? Tonight had major implications on the players or the teams that were playing around the league. Padres lost, Mets gain a game on the third wild card spot. Cardinals had a doubleheader. They lost game one. They're in game
They
two.
lost.
And the last time that I checked, they were losing, if I'm
I
not
thought it was
mistaken.
over.
If
I
someone
thought it
can
was over.
update me. I'm
I thought somebody in the chat said that it was over and that they had lost both games, but I'm not sure.
P5, bottom ninth right now. So Cardinals have last licks. They're down by 3, and they
Okay.
have a runner on first with no outs. So if they lose that game, the Mets are only a game out of the second wild card spot and only a half game out of that third wild card spot. OMG, Grimace, Nimmo, Lindor, everybody else in between that are swinging hot bats, the pitchers who are holding it down. I mean, this is a total team effort from a team that was absolutely in the gutter just a month and a half, 2 months ago, Nick. What a turnaround this has been. But this is where my butt comes in. We always hear the expression, and this is what the Mets and us fans have been living and dying by every single season for we don't know how long. When you take 3 steps forward, this is what Hector from Blunt Thoughts always preaches. You take 3 steps forward, don't take 4 or 5 steps back. Please. You got over 500. You're right there in striking distance to put yourself in one of those top 3, not just looking up at the top 3. Take advantage, especially with a sweep potential tomorrow, and then you have a Rockies, an inferior Rockies team coming to town the series after 4-3. What are your thoughts?
Well, just like me and my pops talk about over on the Heat Did This To Me podcast, where we talk about Knicks, Mets, Jets, and everything that is relevant in sports. Give me a subscribe. But we always talk about the fact that, now that we've gotten back to 500, you can teeter around 500 for a while. You can't fall 4 or 5 games back, as you just said. And, that's the end. At the end of the day, you teeter around and then you pull off a 7-game win streak. And now you're 7 games over or you're 6 games over. And you teeter because baseball, it's never linear. Okay. You're not gonna, it's just not. I don't care who you are. The Yankees were the toast of the town a month ago, and now everybody over there is up in arms. And we were absolute at the bottom of the barrel, and we've gotten ourselves back into the conversation. So that's what we have to continue to do, which is, play around 500 ball, rip off a couple, win streaks. I don't feel like this is a team that's going to play, 650 ball for the rest of the season. I just don't see it. I don't see that in this roster unless, things really change when it comes to our bullpen. But at this point, like I've said before on these, I'm just happy that they are giving us something to pay attention to throughout the dog days of summer when all you have is baseball and those years that the Mets are just an absolute laughing stock and it's LOL Mets by July. Those are tough, long summers because I'm still going to watch every day. So give me something to be juiced up about. Have me waking up in the morning wanting to, listen to New York sports talk radio and read the blogs and, not just like, crawl into a cave of nothingness and want nothing to do with this team and just watch with a pursed lip and an anger inside me every single night. So I'm glad that they are giving me something to pay attention to that is, giving me some joy. And it's fun watching the games on a daily basis. And this team has a really good energy. They really do. I think that starts with the manager. That's the thing I like about Mendoza. Is even when sometimes I question his moves, at the end of the day, I really do feel like he gives a great energy. I felt that way about Buck too. There's other guys like a Mickey Callaway where it just his energy just always felt off. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm at least thankful for that. He seems like he's a real baseball man and a real baseball guy, and I think he's done a good job with this team so far. And it'll be really interesting to see exactly what Stern's game plan is coming in to the trade deadline. As you said, I do think we'll be buyers, but will he go all out and just like really try to snatch up, or is he going to, show some patience? Because I do know that he really wants to build up the farm system and take something to get something. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. I'm just happy that I'm interested.
I agree 100%. That's a great synopsis. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I call this a hybrid year through and through. It was a hybrid offseason. It's probably going to be a hybrid regular season with the potential to sneak into a wild card spot, and it's going to be a hybrid deadline. I think that it's a hybrid year until the Mets can finally build something from the ground up, and that process already started last season. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. If I had to sum it up, but if you're in the chat, we appreciate you all. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, whether you're watching us live or the replay. Hit the subscribe button on my channel. Hit the subscribe button on Nick's channel. The link's going to be in the description down below if you missed it for the other 3 times that I said it in this podcast. And we appreciate you all being here. So many great comments, so much great input, so much great banter. We appreciate it. I'm reading every single comment, and I'm propping up a lot of comments throughout the show, as I usually do, but I definitely appreciate the support. Oliver, I thought this was witty. Tonight was only Sixerino. Next outing, we need Severino. All right. You know what, though? I'll take Sixerino every single day when we take a look at the rest of the rotation and how the bullpen is struggling right now. But A+ for the comment and the wittiness. But listen, if you enjoy our post games, Nick, I'm not sure what your schedule is. I'm kind of asking you off the cuff right now. We can do a post game tomorrow. We're definitely going to be doing a pregame tomorrow with Rob and I, but I will be looking to do a post game tomorrow. Get with me offline if you're able to do so. Community tab is where you'll find all your updates. If you don't want to miss any content on my channel, hit that notifications button. When I drop a pre-recorded episode or I go live, you will get notified, and you can either catch it live, hop in the comments section in the live chat, or hop in the comment section after you watch the replay. And that's how we will go about that. But the pregame will be going down, and a postgame most likely. Don't hold me to it because things change in my schedule very, very easily. I will try to do a post game, but we do have game 3 probables here. We'll talk about this matchup also in the pregame tomorrow, but wanted to get a little bit of your thoughts on it. We have 2 southpaws going at it. The Mets actually won this game. I was there for it in extras this last series. It seems like the pitching matchups are transferring from what we saw in that 4-game set against the Nationals in DC. We get this matchup 2.0 in Queens this time between David Peterson and Mackenzie Gore. Mackenzie Gore is a pitcher, stud pitcher, young guy, their partial return for that Juan Soto deal that the Nats made or with the Padres, I should say. He's 6-7 with a 3.83 ERA, but the Mets have already seen him twice. The first time out was not so great on Mackenzie Gore's part. A lot better of a result against the Mets lineup in game 2 this past series that they squared off in DC. What will happen? Because honestly, the trend that I'm seeing with this Mets lineup this season is that as soon as the Mets lineup sees a pitcher for the second time or the third time, this is not always, there's always exceptions to the rule. They tend to do a lot better and make those necessary adjustments. It wasn't the case with Mackenzie Gore. Obviously, they put up 5 to 6 earned runs in game 1 against Mackenzie Gore, and only, I believe, 1 or 2 earned runs in game 2. But how are you feeling in terms of the confidence level, especially knowing who the Mets have on the mound for themselves? I will say, though, David Peterson, regardless if he goes 4 innings or whether he goes 6 innings, he's been keeping this team in the ball game, and the ERA reflects that. It's just about his command and his ability to possess put away the proper put away stuff to allow him to go 5 or 6 innings, because we've seen in the last 4 starts, 2 starts are in the 6+ innings category, and then the other 2 starts are only in the 4+ innings category. And there's a drastic difference between the two, especially when you're talking about a hurting bullpen. So what do you think about this, Nick?
I think tomorrow is an extremely important outing for David Peterson. He's got some momentum. As you've said, it's been up and down a little bit this season, but when you take a step back and you look at it, 3.58 ERA, 3-0, that speaks to his inability to get late in games and be able to factor in decisions. But I've liked what I've seen out of him. I've liked what I've seen out of him, especially recently. I think the key is, can the offense get some runs early and give him some confidence to be able to just get out there and pitch to contact and throw strikes, and then be able to get a little bit later in the game? And can he not have that inning around the fourth or the fifth where he comes in and walks 2 guys and then, gives up a double? And he always seems to have like that one blow up. And sometimes he rights the ship, or sometimes that's the end of his day, or I guess tomorrow it'll be end of his day. So I just really hope that we can get him some runs early. And I think that if he can have a good solid outing, if he could give us 5 innings, maybe even 6. If he can give us 6 tomorrow and he can go into the All-Star break with that, that type of momentum, I think that would be really good for him. This is a young pitcher who's trying to find his way and figure out, what type of, spot in the rotation guy he's going to be in the majors for the rest of his career, and realize that Senga is coming back. So everybody is auditioning. I mean, other than, Severino, maybe everybody else is kind of, sometimes they show you something, sometimes they don't, sometimes they look. I mean, a few weeks ago, I would have told you Quintana, I don't know about this guy. He might have to be in long relief. And now recently, he's been our best starting pitcher. So everything is fluid. Senga's coming back. We're going into the All-Star break. We need Peterson to step up tomorrow. We get this sweep, and we feel really good finishing up with Colorado. Don't forget, we got the Marlins as the first series once we come back from the break. So this is really, really important. It's more important than your typical day game, getaway game. And we got to figure out a way to win this game tomorrow. And Peterson has got to figure out a way to get us a little bit of length. What's his name? Sugar he'll be available. He'll be available tomorrow. He got the day off tonight, so he'll be available. We go Peterson, Nunez, Sugar, get the dub.
Ball game. I like it. I like that plan 100%. The Mets are set up in a really good situation right now. Having won the first 2 games of the series, having the bullpen guys available. Daniel Nunez only threw 8 pitches in his last outing, I believe, yesterday, so he should be available. Listen, this is a great time to sweep a series. At this point, I'm so happy the Mets won the series. But at this point, I agree with you. This has to be a sweep. And it's a matinee game, by the way, as well. It's a 1:10 p.m. start. So that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to do a post game. So keep an eye out on that. But yes, 100%, we should sweep this series. It's like, as a fan, I smell blood in the water, Nick. I'm smelling the blood in the water. And I think that the Mets team, I'm sure they have this mentality, 100%. They know what's at stake, and they know that if they finish this first half of the season strong, that they will probably be up there in terms of being one of the most confident teams in the MLB as they walk into the second half of the season with help on the horizon. Bullpen help, presumably from David Stearns doing his job, and Kodai Senga's help coming back from rehab stint, dealing with that shoulder injury. So this is a very important time. Don't take the competition lightly, please. The Mets have a tendency sometimes to do that. Please, blood in the water, get it done, get the sweep, and we move on as we move on through game by game by game. A little bit of an update if you missed in the comments, thanks to Junior and a couple other you guys. Cardinals lose, so we're a game out of the second wild card spot, and we were already coming into the stream a half game out of the third wild card spot, with David Peterson going on the mound tomorrow, going up against Mackenzie Gore. Any final thoughts? Anything else? Oh, great point right here before we actually do final thoughts by Oscar. I wanted to prop this up because this is what I was going to ask you before when you mentioned Jeff McNeil. A lot of people, call ups aside, you have an opportunity, you have an option left on DJ Stewart's name. He's been one of the worst hitters in the league, right? Since some point in May. This is already a 3-month sample size we're talking about. What do you do? Who do you prioritize? Because if you have a trade target that can play second base, or you just want to make Jose Iglesias like you're saying your everyday second baseman, but you want to just keep Jeff McNeil for some reason, you can make him the fifth outfielder and take DJ Stewart's spot and just send DJ Stewart down. To answer your question, Oscar, not sure if anyone in this entire league, nobody is going to want DJ Stewart. And I don't know who's going to want Jeff McNeil with the version that we've seen of Jeff McNeil carrying the money that he carries, even though it's a friendly contract when he is seen as the batting champion, but when he's playing like this, it's an overpay. So there's two opposite ends of the spectrum right now of that. I don't want to answer the trade part of your question because I don't think that's an option right now for the New York Mets unless they eat all of Jeff McNeil's salary, essentially, which they have been proven willing to do in seasons prior. But right now, between DJ Stewart and Jeff McNeil, who would you prioritize? I'm going to have to say Jeff McNeil. I'm still going to have to say Jeff McNeil over DJ Stewart. But who would you prioritize, Nick?
Listen, as much as I've crushed Squirrel, at the end of the day, I mean, come on, DJ Stewart, get him out of here. He's bringing nothing. You know, you hope that he won't factor in once we get a guy like Marte back. And you know, I'd like to see McNeil as a pinch hitter. Today he pinch ran for Vientos at one point, but Vientos being a third base, the Mets have had some of the slowest third basemen of all time. Typically, mid infielders are not so slow, but between him and Wilmer, I mean, who's slower between those two? You know, yeah, man, no, you gotta, it's gotta be McNeil. We gotta keep McNeil. Like you said, we're not getting good value for either of those guys right now. And I honestly don't think, I think that if we, you said so Stewart still has an option? We can still send him, he
Yes,
still has
he
an
has an
option?
option to his name.
Oh,
Correct.
because if he wasn't, I think he would clear. I don't think anybody's rushing out there to pick him up. But yeah, send him down, see if he can figure something out in Syracuse. And, you know, McNeil, he, you know, as Carlos just said, he does play strong defense. He, you know, decent outfield. I think better than average at second base. And you know, in a big spot, maybe he can he can pull the memories of yesteryear and, you know, come up with a line drive and not just pop it up like we've seen him do so many times this year. And, you know, definitely him over Stewart, no doubt.
Yeah, 100%. Final thoughts before we get out of this stream.
You know, obviously, you know, another good win, another good series win. After the OMG performance by Iglesias, we lost 2 straight, and it's good that we have steadied the ship since then. Because just like everybody said, hey, look, Grimace comes in and throws the first pitch, and look at the streak the Mets go on. If you go on a bad, tough stretch right after, you know, your journeyman second baseman decides to do a performance in front of everybody, you know, the New York media would have been all over that. So it's good that we've been able to, you know, being able to steady the ship. And now we go into the All-Star break. If we can get this game tomorrow and get to sweep, and then somehow we can go and we can get 2 out of 3 against Colorado, I'm going into the break and coming out of the break feeling real comfortable. I'm talking mad shit to my Yankees friends, and I, you know, and I'm ready to go. And one thing that I think that we need to go ahead and talk about, just at least touch on the fact that, you know, I do think that both Lindor and Nimmo should be all-stars. There is some time. Guys always end up dropping out. And I mean, Lindor's fielding this year has just been so fantastic, and it's been such a joy to watch. He made another sparkling play today up the middle, made it look easy. And just one thing I got to throw out there as an old fogey, you know, old school baseball guy, I love that we did away with the shift. I love that we did away with the shift, and we get to see infielders and specifically shortstops be shortstops again. McNeil talked about that. I'm sorry, Lindor talked about that back when they were proposing to change that rule, that you'll see a lot more great athletic plays, and it's what he would rather be doing. And it's great to see him not only hitting the ball and crushing it and being one of the best hitters in baseball since he's been in that leadoff spot, but having a solid, legitimate guy up the middle, especially with, him and Iglesias playing just a fantastic, sparkling shortstop. It's a joy to watch.
I mean, I agree with you. I haven't really touched on this because I was out and traveling when the All-Star selections were officially announced, and was really shocked to see Pete Alonso be there in the first place, but just also be the only Met. Not sure how many shortstops anyone's going to take over Lindor in the NL, zero, let alone the entire major leagues. But listen, the F war is there if you want to get into the advanced statistics. The stolen bases are there if you want to get into the speed. The average is rising if you're an average lover in terms of the batting average category, right? That's there. OPS is climbing. He's just shy of 800 as well, where he was at low 600s, just
second in extra base hits in the major in the National League right now.
Boom, there you go. The power's there with 16 home runs. On the flip side of things, with left fielders and Brandon Nimmo, 15 home runs, leads the Mets with 53 RBIs as well. What more could we ask for from those two guys as table setters at the top of the lineup? It took a little bit of tweaking for the manager to figure out the lineup to get these guys going after some abysmal starts, respectively, for those two, but they have bounced back in a tremendous way. And I agree, it is a damn shame that Pete Alonso is the only Met representing the organization in the All-Star game. Like you said, a potential to change.
At least one of them will get in. Like, we know somebody's going to have to sub in for Tatis, and there's going to be somebody else. There always is.
I'm sorry, but Lindor not starting is a joke. I'm just going to say that right now. Anyways, I digress. We digress. My final thoughts is just win. I have no other final thoughts. I couldn't care less about anything else than just winning ball games. That's it. As a fan, I'm sure I can speak for a lot of people. Just win. We'll see you all tomorrow for the pregame show and the postgame show. Like I said, please pay attention, hit the notifications button, pay attention to the community tab. I often put in polls regarding this team, whether it's with the Mets or the Knicks. Make sure you participate in those. And that's where I will drop updates on upcoming streams and content as well, if you all are wondering what I got going on the channel. So like I said, vacations planned, all that good stuff. Hit the thumbs up on this stream. If you are in here and you liked what you heard, hit the thumbs up. And I just remembered, Nick, I know I asked you if you're going to be part of the post game. I know you work. I know you're in a different time zone. Probably won't happen.
But I'm working from home tomorrow. Let's go Mets.
Oh, boom. Let's go Mets. All right, there you go. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe. Please get the He Did This To Me podcast to 300 subscribers. Please. All right. Let's go Mets. We'll see you all tomorrow. Great win. Let's go for the sweep. Peace.
Thank you for watching the True Mets Talk podcast. Make sure you're tapping on that notifications button and checking out all the latest content on the channel. Thank you.